everybody. We still have about 1 more minute before our official start time, but I can see we do have a good amount of people here. So we'll just hang out for about a minute, give the rest of the people who are listening in time to join, and we'll go ahead and get started here in just a few seconds. All right, well now the clock has changed over and it is 12 o'clock Eastern, so you can go ahead and get started. If you haven't met me before, I'm Kristen Huizinga. I am the Central Account Manager. However, I've also worked with a lot of OT schools in the past, so I'll go ahead and be leading today's webinar. I also have on the call with me here Rocio. She is going to be helping manage answering any questions that you might have. So if you do want to type a question in the question box, feel free to use that. Rocio will be monitoring and interrupt me with any questions. Or if you would rather speak out, of course, you're on mute by default, and we have to manually go in and unmute you. So if that's something you'd like to do, if you have a question and you want to, say it out loud, please just raise your hand and we'll go ahead and call on you. We'll unmute you then. And let you speak and go forward with your question. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So let me go ahead and start my slideshow here. Oops. And yes, this session is being recorded. I can see one person asked that already. The session is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube, right, Rocio, later?
Correct, yes. And the recording will also be shared with you if you registered and you're here, and even if you're not here, it does send an email with the recording an hour after the event ends. So you'll have that in your inbox as well as on our YouTube channel for reference.
All right, thanks, Rocio. And additionally, also, if you check out the handout section, I do have a PDF of the slides for today, as well as a document, a help document there as well. All right, great. Let me go ahead and start our slideshow. All right, so today, as you know, we are here to talk about STEPS and Formstack integration for the FWPE. And our agenda today, we will do a quick introduction. We'll talk about sending the forms out to your educators. We'll talk about how to actually configure the integration. We will talk about reviewing the forms once your integration has been set up. We'll talk about tracking integration errors, and I'll talk about why those happen as well. And then how you can share your forms with your students. All right, so first we are going to talk about the FWPE and how we have it set up now. So, in the past, before Formstack, you might have, used the old form, sent it out through paper, fax, email, through Exxat. But now the way that it's set up is through Formstack. So what you first need to do to get that form is to send it to the educator. You are actually able to do this in a way through Exxat, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. Or you can, send it through Formstack. Whether you import your list of educators or you add them individually, however you want to get that done, sending it through Formstack is of course an option. Then after, you've sent it out, the educator is of course going to complete that form. That is all done on Formstack. Then the responses are tracked again in Formstack, and all of your data and your reporting and everything is done in Formstack. But then what you can do, if you've set up the integration, you can have those forms that have been completed on Formstack after they've been submitted to automatically go into your Exxat STEPS system so that you can read those forms and reference them later. Think of it like a filing system where those forms would be saved for you to reference later. So it's not going to be like your live place to check, oh, did Jane's educator submit her form yet? Exxat would not be the place to go to do that. So Formstack will be your kind of source of truth. Is there a new form today? Anything like that. If you want to pull out the data, that would all be done through Formstack. But if you just, say it's a month after the rotation ended and you're like, I can't remember, what Jane's educator said about question number 6 or whatever, you can go and view the form from Exxat. All right, and the way that it's set up is that it's actually going to pull once a week from Formstack into Exact. Right now it's set like the default that every form pulls over on Saturdays. But if that, is not a good day you think for your forms to pull, you can let our support team know when you set up the integration to have it pull on a different day. Right, so before we move on to sending to the educator, are there any questions? Feel free, use that question box or raise your hand.
Not seeing, oh, we have a hand raise actually. That just went down, so they may have retracted their question, but no, I think we are good for now. I think Mary Patterson has a question. Go ahead, Mary.
No, I'm unmuted. Hi, I wanted to know if this is recorded and if we'll have we'll have this recorded presentation available to us later.
Yes, it'll be sent to you. GoToWebinar, I'll send it out, I think Rosia said about an hour after the call ends, and then it'll also be available on YouTube. I know it does take some time to get the recording imported over onto our YouTube channel, but you'll be able to see it there as well.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, great. Any other questions? No? All right, then let's go ahead and take a look at how you can get these forms out to your educators. So again, that can be done through Exact or through Formstack. So the first thing you probably want to do is decide whether you want to send it through Formstack or through Exact. So there's some advantages and disadvantages to both. So if you're sending it through Exact, this is something that you can do through the placement notifications that you're already sending out. So you could include a link in there to the Formstack form, or you could use the placement notifications, but have our team create a separate email. So rather than saying this is the student who's placed here, here's all the information about the student who's coming, here's also the link to complete their evaluation when it's time to do that, you could send it out, a week or so before it's actually time for them to complete the evaluation in its own email, just using that placement notifications section. The thing with this is, though, you have to go into Formstack and get a permalink. So this is a link that you could send to basically anybody at any time in order to get that form completed. The disadvantage to doing it this way is that you will have to send separate emails for the midterm and finals. So I'll talk about sending it out through Formstack here in a second, but it doesn't have some of those advantages that you have in Formstack of sending them, through Formstack, where it automatically generates the link for the final after they complete the midterm. They also will not be able to see their responses that they filled in at midterm when they're completing the final. So it is a fairly large disadvantage, but you don't have to worry about importing your list of educators or, adding them individually into Formstack if they're already added as educators in Exact. That might be an advantage for you, or you might consider that, to not be that much extra work to put them in Formstack. So kind of your call there on which one you think would be better. If you are sending it through Formstack, again, it does allow the educator to automatically get that link for the final after submitting the midterm, is my understanding. And it also will allow the educator to review those midterm responses when they're completing the final. And those are things that will not happen if you send it through that permalink through Exact. So something to consider there when you're deciding how you want to send it. And if you are wanting to send it through Formstack, you might, again, I don't work for Formstack, so I'm not entirely sure how their platform is set up, but if they will accept like a Excel file, you could always use Exact to generate that Excel file of students and educators as well, if that's something that you want to try to do. If you do want to send it through Exact, you might want to include it in your existing placement notification email template, that permalink to your Formstack form. So if you want to do that, you're going to go to Configuration, and then in Advanced Options, you have your email template editor, and you're going to look for your alert site placement packets. And there you can go ahead, when you click on that, it's going to open up your email template editor. And here you could paste that permalink somewhere in your email template so that when they get that notification to tell them that this is the student who's coming, they also get that link to the form. So that's totally an option if you want to do it that way. If you would rather have a separate standalone template just to say it's time to complete the midterm, here's my link to the midterm. You'll want to go ahead and get that set up from our support team. You aren't able to add a brand new template yourself. So you'll want to email support@exxat.com or use, your left menu help section where you can, generate a ticket to support that way. And go ahead and request that there be a new email template that's included in that send notification to sites dropdown. Give us the body of what you want your email to say. You can attach it as a Word document if you want, or you can just type it in the email. And then, let them know any merge fields that you want, the first name of the person, the student name, all that type of thing. And then, of course, also provide that permalink from Formstack. Right, any questions about sending to the educator before we move on to, setting up the integration?
Not seeing any questions, Kristen.
All right, great, thanks, Rocio. All right, so next let's talk about configuring the integration. So if you have already done this, if your school already is using the Exxat integration with Formstack, you do not need to do this step again. This is something that is only done once. But if you haven't set it up before, what you need to do is get some information from Formstack, the API details, to send to the Exxat team. So this is how you're going to do that. Don't feel like you need to write everything down, because in that handout section, one of those PDFs is a document that gives you step-by-step with these exact same screenshots showing you how to do this. So you're going to hover over your username up in the upper right corner on Formstack, and then you'll have in that menu a variety of options, one of which is API. So you're going to go ahead and do that. Then you're going to click to create a new application. It's going to open up this form, and you're going to have some information that you're going to have to type in. So in the application name, you're going to type Exxat Integration. And again, this is in the how-to document. In the redirect URL or URI, my screenshot's a little blurry, so I'm not sure. But again, it is in the help document. You're going to type a slash. And then in the description, you're going to type Exxat Integration with Formstack for, and then your school's name. If you'd like, you can upload a logo. And then on the platform, there's a drop down there. You're going to select website. Do I see that there's a question?
Yes, someone asked that their steps does not match the screens you're sharing, and I was just going to let them know that this is the Formstack application.
Yeah, this is Formstack. Yep, this is not steps. All right, and then, oops, sorry, you're going to click that Create Application button here at the bottom. Once this has been created, do not change this. So if you go into Formstack and this is already here, do not make any changes. It's already set up. You don't want to, cause any problems with your integration. Right? After you click that Create Application button, this is going to come up. You're going to see your API v2 applications there. What we need from you are these two fields here where it says API name and the application token. So you need to grab those from this section and send them to our support team, support@exxat.com, with a subject line, Formstack Integration, and we will go ahead and get this all set up for you. So then you'll just want to wait. Oh, go ahead.
Kristen, sorry, I think it was on one of the previous screens. Someone asked if there is a benefit for using a logo or not.
Not necessarily, no, it's entirely optional. All right. And then, yeah, you'll just need to wait some time and the integration will be set up. Does anybody have any other questions about setting up that process? No? Okay. So once that is set up, what happens? You want to review the forms and see where you can find them in Exxat. Again, it's not going to pull every single day or anything. It's going to make a call once a week to Formstack to get the forms into Exxat. So if, it pulls on Saturdays, as, is what kind of the default is for most schools. If it's pulling on Saturdays and your educator submits a form Sunday, and it's not going to pull over if you're checking on Monday, but the following week you would be able to see it. So again, not Exact is not going to be your place to see who's completed it, who hasn't. It's just like your filing system. Where you can find, oh, sure.
A couple more questions about the logo. If they do upload a logo, do you know where that logo goes?
I am not sure. That is on Formstack's side, so that would be a question for Formstack.
Okay. And they have another question that said, what's the purpose of uploading the logo? But I'm not sure if that's a Formstack
Yeah,
question.
I'm not sure. It's on Formstack's side. It's really entirely optional. It's not something for our system. Our system already has your logo, and if it doesn't, definitely send it to the support team and we can get it added to your email templates and everything.
Okay, and we have a couple of questions regarding, they've already linked the Formstack What Steps, but they are not seeing any imported forms.
Okay, so we will talk about reviewing the forms and tracking errors in forms that don't import. So we'll talk about those here in a minute. We'll see if we can, figure out if those are the reasons why they're not pulling over. And if not, that might be a specific situation you want to talk to the support team about. Any other questions?
Nope, that covered all of them, thanks.
Okay, all right, great. All right, so let's see how we can review those forms in steps once they have been pulled over. So where you're going to go is actually in placements by session. So these will pull over per session. Then you'll go to the post placement section, just like you view, all of the students' assignments or things on their to-do list. And you're going to go to the FWPE review. If this is not in your system, it's something that will get added when you set up that Formstack integration. So for that person asking, if that's for some reason not there, definitely let our support team know, just in case if that's part of the issue. When you click FWPE review, you're going to get taken to a page like this. Much like in many spaces throughout our system, you have, a column for the student's name and placement details, and each student and placement will be a row. And then you also are going to have columns for each evaluation form. So like the FWPE midterm and the FWPE final. You're going to click on the view button in order to see the form. If there are two view buttons, that just means there's more than one form for that student. Oftentimes there's one filled by the student, like a self-evaluation, as well as one filled by the educator. Or of course, it could be a case where if you had like two separate ones, with two separate educators. But most commonly, I'm seeing one that's filled by the student as well as one by the educator. Either way, when you click that, it's going to open up a page where you can see the actual results of that form. All right, are there any questions about this?
No questions for now.
No, okay. All right, so next let's talk about those errors. So this might be for that person who asked that question, this might be why there's no forms, but we'll definitely, explore those and take a look. So there's really two main reasons that forms would not pull over into Exact correctly. The first one, you are going to be able to find in Exact itself. It'll notice those errors. So let's go ahead and go through that. Where those errors are going to pull in for you is in reports, other reports, and then in the general reports section, if you have the integration set up, you'll have something called Formstack Missing Records. This report is going to load a page where you'll see any reports that didn't pull over to the appropriate session. So typically what happens here is, let's say you had a session where you had put in the placement dates on Exact for student one here. Say you said they started January 1st on Exact. However, the educator, when filling out the form on Formstack, put in the placement start date of January 5th. Because there's a mismatch between Formstack and Exact, our system doesn't know which session to pull that over to. So it's really easy for you to update these directly on Exact. What you can do, you can see this is the data that was pulled from Formstack. You'll see like the student name and email address and those dates. You're just going to click on whatever session it matches to. And then if those dates were correct that the educator entered, and as you can see, you cannot actually read the Formstack form on this page, But if, the student's placement truly did start on January 5th, not January 1st, what you're going to want to do is click on that and then update your actual start and end dates there to match what the educator entered on Formstack. Oops, I'm sorry. And then save and close. And that is going to, fix that error. So in the next poll, it will come through into that FWPE review section. So if there was a mismatch on dates on the exact end that the dates were incorrect, that's going to correct that issue for you. Now, let's say your educator entered in the wrong dates. I've seen this happen before. Maybe the placement dates that the educator entered was January 5th, 2020. Something like that has happened. In that case, you can actually go into Formstack and edit the form that the educator submitted and edit those dates on there. Again, once you save that and the next poll happens, it will correctly pull through those forms. Do I have any questions about this before I talk about the other situation that can cause forms not to pull?
We have a related question. Someone asked if they are able to export a file from this platform, for example, exporting student placements for a specific rotation.
From STEPS, you could. Absolutely.
Okay.
You can go on your reports, you have placement reports, or if you go to placements by session and click on the purple placement button, if you click on like those circles that show, the number of students placed, the number of slots, all that type of thing, you should be able to use the purple tools button to export that. But it does not, well, actually it does look like this one. If you wanted to export the list of errors, you could, if that's what you're asking too. Hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so the other situation that can cause, a mismatch between Exxat and Formstack is one that we actually can't track in Exxat. And that's if the educator entered in a different email address for the student. So, your students have their school email usually set up with Exxat as like their account login. If for whatever reason the educator made a typo in that email or put in like a student's personal email address, it is not going to pull over to Exxat because Exxat is pulling based on that email address, matching which student record it belongs to based on that. If they put in a Gmail, it's going to say, oh, I don't recognize that email address. It's not a student in our system, and it's just not going to pull it over. So what you'll want to do is go ahead, if you notice some are missing that are completed in Formstack and they've been there for some time, scroll through on Formstack. Unfortunately, I don't have a login or anything where I can show you, but if you look at that big list of like all of your completed forms on Formstack, you can scroll through and there's a column for the student's email address. If you scroll down that, if you see, just quickly scan, if you see @gmail.com, @Yahoo, or something that's not their school email, again, you can edit that on Formstack. Once you correct it to their school's email, then it should pull over. Right, any questions about errors with Formstack forms pulling?
No questions, Kristen.
No? Okay, great. All right, so next I have some super exciting news, and that is making the FWPE visible to students. So in the past, this was not something you were able to do on Exxat. It was just Formstack. You could upload a PDF on Exxat for the students or something, but that was quite cumbersome. But now we have something new where you can make it visible to the students, which I think is going to be a huge benefit to anybody, and really, might be the reason you want to start using the integration if you're not using it already. So if this is something that you want to do, sharing the FWPE just with that student it was completed about, what you'll want to do is you can actually add it to their to-do list for that placement. So to set that up, you'll be able to go to placements by session, session setup, and then session activities. Just like always, this is going to open up your add activity menu where you'll see any of those activities you already have set up. You'll click add activity and that'll open up your session activities pop-up. and you'll have a new one you can select, FWPE Formstack form. When you add this, you just save and close. You don't have to, do anything else. You don't have to set a publish date. It's going to become part of the student's to-do list. So the student will go to My Placements, and then they'll have FWPE Formstack form, or of course, whatever you have chosen to call it. And then they will see kind of a very similar section, but they'll only see their own forms for that session. So, they'll have the final or the midterm. They'll click view on whichever one they want to see. And then, it's going to pull up that form where they can scroll through. They'll see everything that's been filled out and they can read their information. Again, it's going to pull over when the forms pull from Formstack to Exxat. So it's just going to be once a week, but it's going to be super helpful for you to share that information with your students so that you don't have to PDF it and email it to them or upload it somewhere for them. All you have to do is add that session activity and it will be there for them. So if that's something that you want, it is not a session activity that we've made available in everybody's system right now, but you can absolutely have it added. So again, you're going to want to email the support team, support@exxat.com, and ask them to add the session activity. It's called on the activity page again, FWPE Formstack form. So they're going to want to add that. And they're going to want to make sure to add that navigation on the student side. So just make sure to ask them, please add the activity, the FWPE Formstack form to my session activities, and add the navigation on the student side so that students can see it. They will get it added in for you, and then you'll be able to add it to your session activities. If you have your integration set up, as soon as one pulls over, it'll start being visible to students right away, which is a super big help. Any questions about making those visible to students?
I have a couple of questions regarding to the integration. Someone asked just for confirmation if that students sent in student fieldwork forms, it needs to be submitted from their school email, or does she need to change it in Formstack so it gets transferred to Exxat?
So she would need to update it in Formstack to her school email address.
Okay.
Because if it's not updated in Formstack, Exxat won't know that that's a student that belongs, in your system.
Okay, and then we have one more question. Do I need to have the student linked to their placement within STEPS in order for the FWPE to be transferred from Formstack, or is it simply using the student's email address and dates of their rotation?
Yeah, yes, it's using the student's email address and dates of their rotation. However, if they're not placed at any site for those dates, it's going to go in that integration errors. It doesn't know which session to match it to. So it is tied to the session. If they're not placed for that session, there's no way for the form to pull over. Okay. But it doesn't have like the site name or anything tying it to which placement it brings over, because you may have called something, the site name one thing, and the educator might type in something totally different, which is totally understandable, right? People use different abbreviations and things for their sites.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Rocio. And that's actually everything there is to cover about the Formstack integration with STEPS. Does anybody have any questions?
We have one more question, or a couple. Someone said, is the FWPE PDF version will be an option that Exxat is working on in the near future? Unfortunately, the version of the form that it pulls over is not easy to read.
It's definitely been something that we've been considering. I don't know that there's a timeline on it for the future. You should be able to PDF it in Formstack if you really need a PDF somewhere, but the idea of having it in Exxat is that it's like your filing system that you could show, if you needed to show, I don't know, another, higher department or somebody at your school that you're filing them somewhere, or again, now to share it with your students. But if you're needing to save it as a PDF elsewhere, I would recommend doing that through Formstack itself. You could always do like the file print as PDF in Exact, but I know the formatting on that is not, as nice as the formatting from PDFing from Formstack.
One more question here. We have purchased Formstack, but we don't have it available until 9/1. Can we have this integrated ahead of time or no?
If you have access to Formstack and can get that API information, absolutely. You could certainly ask our team to add the, session activity and everything in advance. But yeah, you can't really get that API information until you have access to your Formstack account. But if you have access, even if you're not, actively using it, haven't sent out any forms or anything, then that's fine. You should be able to pull all that information. Many people set this up originally before they had ever sent a Formstack form. All right, any other questions?
It looks like we have a hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and unmute this person here, and you can go ahead. I don't know how to pronounce the name. Laruna Moore?
Lorana, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I think I've already done the API name and application token earlier on, and I wanted to know if so, how can I verify whether or not that step has been completed already for me?
So you could go ahead and check on that FWPE review on any of your sessions and see if forms are there. That would be one, confirmation if it's already running. Otherwise, let me go back to that section here. If you go into that section on Formstack, if you can see if there are, if you can see that it is set up on Formstack,
Okay.
then you know that you've already done it. If you go to that create an application section and there is like your API applications and it's already set up there, then you would know that it's been created.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Yes. Someone asked if they were to go ahead and set up the integration, will it be retroactive for FWPs already submitted for previous sessions, or will it only import new data going forward once the integration is complete?
It'll be retroactive, so it'll go and do those from the past session. Again, you would have to go in and check and make sure the email addresses match and, update any of the dates that don't match, but yes, it will pull in those old forms.
And we have another question here, just to confirm, will we need to create separate email templates for midterm and final through Exact?
Yes, if you want to send the permalink from Formstack through Exact, you will have to have it, send one for midterm and one for final. Again, they will not be able to see their answers that they filled at midterm when completing the final if you do it that way, which is one reason many schools choose not to do it. But if you feel that that saves you a lot of time and adding all the educators and things like that, you may absolutely send it out that way. You will have to send out 2 separate emails.
We also have Cheryl who has her hand raised. Go ahead, Cheryl, if you have a question. I'm not sure if her audio is on. I think she left.
Okay, maybe
Okay.
accidental hand raise. All right, any other questions?
What do I do if support has not responded to my request for help on not being able to see any forms under FWPE review? I have sent requests twice and received no response. Kim, we might actually reach out to you offline to see if we can find those tickets. Is that right, Kristen? And just connect with you?
Yeah, let's definitely connect with you about that. And just one other thing, just double check the email you're sending it to is support@exact.com, or there's always the option if you if you go into your system, I'm just going to pull my exact university school here. If you go into your system and submit a ticket by going to help technical support, if you fill it out this way, you should see your open tickets right here, and it'll show you, the status and everything there. But yeah, we'll definitely reach out to you separately just to double check. Just not, necessarily saying this is the case, but I have seen a couple times where someone sent it to the wrong email address or something like that. So if that ever happens, this is a great way of submitting them just to make sure that you can track the status of those tickets right in your system as well.
And back on the slide, someone asked how you got to the create an application screen. I think that might be on Formstack.
On Formstack, sure. So you go to your name in the upper right corner. Whoops, sorry, I'm still showing my exact university here. Let me get that away. There you go. All right, so you're going to go in the upper right corner on Formstack to your name and then go to API. And then that is going to go to this where you will see any of those existing applications. And if there's none, you'll click to new application to add that information in. And again, this is on that handout, so be sure to download that handout. Let's see, the one that's called FWPE Integration is the slides. The one that says setting up FWPE Integration is the how-to for just doing the setup. Also, if you forget to download it, if you go to our help center, help.exxat.com, and search Formstack, it will come up right there.
And is there a URL that people that you might have just for people to access Formstack, or is it accessible through STEPS?
Formstack is not accessible through STEPS. I mean, that's your separate application that AOTA is set up for doing the FWPE. So I am not sure how you would access that. Definitely reach out to your contacts at AOTA or at your school to be able to get your login information for Formstack.
And someone had asked this earlier, but if someone clicks on that first option to get to API and they don't have that option, does that mean they don't have the right access, or they might have to talk to someone else to get the right access?
Yeah, you might need to check if multiple people at your school have access to Formstack, ask other people to try and see if they have it. Otherwise, if nobody does, you're gonna have to reach out to Formstack about that. All right, any other questions?
Not seeing any additional questions, yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much all for joining. I'll hang on here for another minute or two in case anybody thinks of anything, but otherwise, thank you so much. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and good luck with your Formstack integrations. All right, take care. All right, since it looks like there's no other questions, I'll go ahead and get going. Thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of your day.